de jardín en primavera, no te podré contarte si no es tu risa de jardín en primavera, auténtica locura que acaricia, mi voluntad me acaba por tenerla, de manera de quererte, de manera de quererte, de manera.
Hello, this is Leader with Navia this Friday, February 11, 6 p.m. Brazil. I have the honor to talk today with a global leader. He was born in Puerto Rico, but he's a global leader. We're going to talk in English, but we could talk in Spanish as well. But let's talk in English. It's easier for us, for both of us, because I know he kind of understands Portuguese as well, and he will tell us why. But today I have with us Ivan Lopez. Ivan told me he's a very curious and eternal learner. He loves to learn and he loves to understand things. He's a loving dad of two grown up, a boy and a girl. He will also tell us about it. He has a brother who lives in Puerto Rico. But Ivan is the youngest. I know that. And as far as I remember, he's a lawyer, but he never ever used his lawyer knowledge professionally. So, Ivan, I think I told you a lot about you, but I want you to tell us your story. Very welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, and a happy Friday to everyone. My story. Uh, Born and raised Puerto Rican, always with very curious about other cultures, about learning from people, learning from situations. So my original academic degrees started in international business. Also did accounting, and the quest for knowledge took me to become a CPA and later on a lawyer. And now doing EDBA or doctorate program in business. Professionally, did started in auditing and consulting for one of the big companies, accounting firms in the US, Pitt Marwick. From there, I went into one of the largest financial institutions in Spain. Started going to Spain a lot and Latin America under Banco Bilbao Vizcaya. And after that, I joined Assurant Group, which is a Fortune 500 company in the US, and had different jobs over 23 years. I was the CFO of the largest segment. I was in charge of actuarial, at some point system, risk management. I was the president and the first president of the Latin American division. So I had the pleasure of opening offices around Latin America. I spent significant time in Brazil. So that's how I learned a little bit of Portuguese. So I falo un poquinho de portugués, mas poca práctica. I also opened companies in Chile, Mexico, and other countries. And then I dedicated some time to mergers and acquisitions, doing integrations, and buying and divesting companies in the US as well as in Latin America. Like a year ago, I started my own consulting firm, Lopez Consulting, and I am also part of the board of directors of two insurance companies in Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, and also board of directors of DGI Investment Trust, which is part of a public financial institution in the US. And then I do some advisory work recently for George Washington University, now with University of Richmond, and trying to help always new talent and people trying to start new business. I like to be the person that asks questions and that help them and guide them at the same time that I learn, because I'm a firm believer that the more that you know, the more you realize how little you do know.
Yeah.
And you have
for
to,
sure.
go and learn even more. So it's good always to have a slice of a humble pie ready in everything you do.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, you do a lot. You do a lot.
I have fun, that's for sure.
Yeah, how do you find time? How do you manage your time?
I think that in part I have a very understanding family and a great wife that allows me and cheers me to do all this stuff, because certainly without their support, there is no way that it is possible. Uh, but at the same time, they know that if I'm not active and learning and listening, I'll be miserable. So they
Yeah,
allow me the space and the time to do it, although they also demand their time, like they should.
and fair enough. Fair enough. Ivan, how do you define your purpose today? Because we know that purpose evolves with us as we
Yeah.
grow, but somehow we never miss like a guiding line. What is your purpose now?
That's a great, great question. And one of the things that I live by is to make sure that I understand my values at different stages in life and try to pass any activity that I want to engage through those values. Right now, my most important north is to contribute to the development of people and the society as a whole, but doing it in a very uh, purposely way, and understanding that sometimes the small steps are as important as the big ones, because every big revolution starts by a small idea and a small step, and then more people will join. So making a difference in people's life, even if it's small, is what I want to do for the rest of this stage.
Wow, I love it. And how do you define your leadership style?
So I will say that it's I lead by example, and I lead by listening. It is I always say that God gave us two ears and one mouth, and so if you are able to keep that relationship in everything you do, you're gonna impact people, and you're gonna learn also a lot. I think that I like to listen. I am lead by example, extremely curious, and like to understand things before I give my opinion. And I love people that challenge me, respectfully, obviously, but where you can have a conversation and have a good discussion, because I think that's where ideas come out, and when you build trust and respect. And those are some pillars that I truly believe could make us better people, better
Yeah,
society, better community.
yeah, you made me remember my grandmother. My grandmother is still alive. She's 99 years old, and she always said that to me. Remember, my granddaughter, You have 2 ears and one mouth. You should listen more than speak.
Yeah, and it is hard, but once
It
you start
is.
practicing, it's a lot of fun. Uh,
Y-
the problem is, like today, I like more to listen than to speak, and today I have to speak more to listen. So
my role here is to listen and to ask good questions. What you like to do. So today you're gonna speak.
there you go.
So you talked about trust and respect. Um, in practice, how do you build trust among your relationships, your people you relate to?
So the key to trust is to be vulnerable, and that's something that typically we don't want to do.
Yeah,
But to be able to reach that point of trust, you have to put yourself out there, and at the same time, be able to kind of throw the punches and take the punches, because not everything is going to be roses. If you're willing to do that, you gain a lot more than some of the pain that it may create. And we also, in our journey, have to learn not to be too sensitive and be able to put ourselves in the other person's shoes to really understand their arguments and try to reach that middle point, or just to try to understand where they are coming from, because there's not a perfect solution to every problem.
yeah.
But I truly believe that there is something that can be done with every problem.
I love because you talked about being vulnerable. And do you think it's harder for men to be vulnerable than it is for women or not?
I think that that's a great question. I believe it has to do a lot with how you were raised and where you come from. As Latins, especially I was going to say older, but let's say the more experienced generation, of which I'm part of, uh, we have more trouble being vulnerable than females. I do believe that that's changing. And I believe that now things are becoming more similar. Other cultures don't have, you don't see that experience. They are a lot more comfortable with vulnerability. But for a Latin, yes, that's a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. I feel the same. I always ask this question, and mostly men say they are struggling uh, about being vulnerable because they were raised and they were trained to be leaders with all the answers that would not fail at any possibility. So it's hard. It's an unlearning process.
Yeah, I have a group that I belong to. We actually call us CHAMS, it's Caribbean Hearts and Mind. And it's a group that we've been together 20 years. It's a group that works with an organization called YPO, Young Presidents Organizations. And the group is a forum. And one of the things that we work very hard at, and where we get the most value, is where we get to the point that inside that forum, we establish the trust to be able to discuss any topic, being vulnerable and without being afraid to hear the feedback and the experiences of the other members. And the other members are all presidents of different companies in different industries. So they have very demanding and challenging jobs where they are not expected to be vulnerable. And
Yeah.
where, just like you said, they're expecting to be strong leaders that have all the answers. And if they don't, they will look for them and tell us about it. But something that we all have to work on.
Yeah. And what is the role, Ivan, that the ego and the vanity plays in this journey? Because we all have egos, we all have vanities.
Yes.
How do you resize that in our journey?
Again, an amazing question. There is I believe in the Stoic philosophy, and there is a gentleman called Ryan Holiday that writes about it. And he has a book that is called Ego is the Obstacle, which I recommend everyone. To the extent that you can control your ego, you're going to be able to open doors and be able to see a lot more than when your ego is not in check. And the only way to be vulnerable is to be conscious when the ego becomes the obstacle. And there is no doubt that it will.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of you being able to identify when you have to say, you know what, maybe this is my ego acting. Let's leave that for another day and let's put it aside. But the ego is a defense mechanism that we all have and will be always present. That's why we have to be able to recognize it and be able to identify when it's getting in the way. I believe there are things that with age we all can use that help us, like meditation is one thing that helps us identify where our ego is on the way. And it also helps having good partners or good friends that will identify and let you know, hey, that thing is coming out. Get it on check. Get it under control.
Yeah, and this requires a lot of self-awareness, self-knowledge, and it's still a journey, as I see, at least from here, from Brazil, mainly for men to allow themselves in this self-knowledge, self-awareness process.
Yeah.
I don't know about Puerto Rico, but here in Brazil, we still hear a lot people saying that therapy is for crazy people.
Okay.
But as we have seen mental issues growing and burnouts, maybe it's not.
Yes, I will say that in still, I've been living now. I used to say that I live in Delta on American Airlines because I was always traveling. But now I've been 11 years in Atlanta, and still I could see in the Latin community and in Puerto Rico where that still carries somewhat of a stigma, and in the US as well.
Yeah.
Especially in some areas and in the South where I am. But it's good to see how in all disciplines, including sports, in arts, you're starting to see more openness to that concept. It is also true, and I like to explore a little bit of controversial topics. It is also true that sometimes it's used as an excuse. I will say, so it's important to find that balance and to seek the help when it's needed. But also don't use it as an excuse to take responsibility and accountability for your actions
Yeah.
and your plans and your voice and the way that you behave. Because nobody can affect any change other than you. And to the extent that what you look is help in helping you recognize and you to be part of the change, I'm all for it. And I think that is needed. And it has nothing to do with culture. It's about your own journey of improvement.
For sure, for sure. Ivan, how have you developed your communication skills? Because we know that communication is key for leadership and also for inclusion. and but not so many leaders still today invest in their communications abilities and skills. How have you developed your communication skills?
So I'll say three things. When you lead with your heart, people will be open to have a communication. That's number one. Two, when you understand that a big part of communication is to listen, things become easier because suddenly you are actually part of the communication and are not thinking about what I'm going to answer. What do I have to say? You are concentrated in the message that you're receiving.
Yeah.
And the last part is you have to work on it. I don't consider myself a great communicator, but I do pay a lot of attention to communicate. And I try to get better and get the feedback. And then you have all the technical training that they can give you, right? The pronunciation. I have a heavy Latin accent. So I have to be careful to try to pronounce the best I can, to move my lips when I'm talking. I'm Puerto Rican, so I speak fast. It's like if you see me, hear me speaking in Puerto Rican Spanish, I'm getting excited. I can go very fast. And
I
people
will
don't
not
understand me.
understand a word.
That's right. So those are small things that you have to work. But it's like any skills. If you put the time and the effort, you'll get better. And it's a journey. You'll never stop.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And how do you deal with mistakes?
Wow. I try to avoid them. Uh, but to the extent that you learn something from them, they're welcome. And that's something that as a leader, you have to be very conscious. You learn a lot from family life. And when you have kids, you want to protect them from their mistakes.
Yeah,
But you have to realize that you have to allow them to commit those mistakes and hope that they're not too bad so they can learn because they're not going to learn from your telling them not to do something.
yeah,
In business, I believe in the development of people and empowering people. And again, sometimes you have to allow them to explore, knowing that there may be a mistake in there. But at the same time, you never know. Maybe you will learn from them and it will not be a mistake. But I try not to get too down on my mistakes, which certainly happen probably more often than I would like. But if you have an open mind and correct them and be humble about it, that's the comment that I said that every now and then we all need a piece of humble pie. It helps. And that's
yeah,
where mistakes come in and learnings come in.
yeah. It helps a lot, and I do agree with you. I have two teenagers at home, two girls, and we try to protect them from making mistakes, from being frustrated. But they have to make mistakes,
Yes,
otherwise they won't learn. So this balance is pretty hard.
yes, it is. It is. It is. And they will not understand it until they become
No,
parents.
no, no. I was having this conversation with my oldest yesterday, and she was just fighting with me. And I said, "Okay, one day when if you ever become a mother, you will understand me."
That is right. That is right.
So, as we are talking about kids, I always love to ask this question: what is the role that paternity play in your life? How has becoming a dad, how has it changed your life and your leadership style?
So I think that it enhanced my sensitivity to others, my vulnerability, and also that curiosity, because kids kids are curious about the most incredible things,
Yeah.
and they enjoy the small things that we take for granted. My father, which I'm super proud and I love him, amazing, uh, used to get all these small things for the kids, crazy stuff that they would love, no? And but one day in Christmas, he got this car. It was a red car that you can control, a radio car, but it was a big one. It was, I don't know, in my mind, it was like 4 feet long. And it had a big box. And my son opened it, and it was like amazing. But he played more getting inside the box than with the car. And I say, it would have been a lot cheaper just to buy the box than to buy the car. And there is a lesson there about curiosity and about the simplicity of life, and how the enjoyment of simple things we take for granted. And it happens every day, just like being able to enjoy with your favorite person music, or a sundown, or a stroll, or a beautiful day. Uh, so becoming a parent, uh, you spend a lot of time just taking care of your kids, but paying attention also to small things, and realizing that all these small things make them happy.
Yeah.
So to the extent that you can take that to your leadership style, you realize that paying attention to people in that small things may make the difference. I have a story about we used to recognize good performers in public, and there was this person that hated that, and I knew it. So we did something completely different. Uh, and in that case, I gave that lady a gift card to go out and have dinner with the husband on a Friday, and gave her half of the day off. It was cheaper than the activity that I was going to do, but she was super appreciative because I was recognizing how she processes information, how she wants to be appreciated. And that's something that you do with your kids as a parent, because you try to make them happy in the same and the things that they like. So there's a lot of learnings just by looking at kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And this example that you brought about this lady, it talks so deeply about inclusion
Yes.
and diversity, because as parents we listen, we hear and we say, how can they be so different? We gave the same education, we gave the same example, but it's not true,
Yeah.
because they came to our lives in different moments, and we were not the same person when we
Right.
were interacting with them. And this leads me to a question, Eva. In your perspective, from your point of view, why is it so hard for companies, for leaders, to really include people, to really promote a diverse environment?
Wow. There is a lot of things there in that question. I will say part of it is that when you're a parent, your desire when your kid goes to school is to be included. You don't want to see your kid in the corner.
Yeah.
You want him to have friends. You want to participate. Somehow along the way, we forget that. And we don't translate that in life. I believe that companies typically embrace diversity, inclusion for three reasons. One, and I hope more will, is because it's the right thing to do. The second one is because someone told them that they have to do it.
Yeah.
I need it because my shareholders, I need it because the public demands that, I need it because some regulation, I need it because I need to do a check mark. Like everything that you don't have your heart on it, that's not going to work. The last is because it makes business sense. It's not my preferred reason, but a lot of good things have come out in part because it makes business sense.
Yeah.
I think to the extent that we understand that diversity and inclusion, it is also good for business. We will be able to push the movement and the understanding better and farther. And hopefully, they will also understand that is the right thing to do. There is several books that talk about the diversity benefits of books, of having inclusion and diversity, that I wish people will read more. When I talk to some companies, I go through this and I talk about this is the right thing to do. And I wish that was the main reason. But if not, you can use it for marketing because you should be able to have enough representation from the people that you serve and the community that you're in. You should be able to have better innovation if you're able to have the conversation and bring people to talk and be open about having the conversations and be accountable for the conversations. I believe that also we as leaders that believe in diversity, we have to make also ourselves accountable and not
Yeah.
wait for the business to take the steps. We have to take the first steps and we have to make them accountable and we have to make it ourselves accountable. You cannot demand change without being part of the change. And it's hard because it's very easy to ask for others to do
Yeah.
or to complain because the company doesn't. But what have you done lately? How can you move the needle? Uh, I believe there's a lot of things to do. I believe that companies change, most companies in general have difficulty just like people on changing. And we're trying to make them change. So we have to be patient, but we have to be constant in what we want and take the small steps that take us to the bigger objective. I had a conversation with a company that I love that asked my opinion on some things. And I said, as long as this is not a check mark in the box or a poster in an elevator, come in. If you don't want to have the tough conversations that are going to lead you to increase innovation, to increase curiosity, to increase performance, that at the end of the day is going to benefit the company as well as the employees that participate, don't come in because I'm all for action and all for accountability. The
Yeah.
rest, that's for Hollywood to take care of, not for me.
Yeah. I think, feel, and do the same. I'm very impacted by a journey I just started today. We have here Fundação Dom Cabral, that is a very well-known university, global university. And today we started from an initiative that is named CEO Legacy. We started a journey on impact for diversity. And the first class today was with Subi Rangan, the very well-known teacher. And he said something that it's still echoing in me, is that, of course, we all know that change starts with us, and you have to lead by example. But he said that to do that, you need competence and character. And he divides character in caring and commitment. And it's so simple and it's so powerful. and I have spent the whole day talking about this because it was mainly for CEO and C-level executives. And I've been talking about this for so long. And I'm sure that now that a man, a teacher told them this, they will listen to it.
Which is very sad, but you're completely right. And it's interesting how simplicity gets through to people.
Yeah.
When the time is right.
When the time is right. Yeah. That's the key. When the time is right. And everyone has its own time, his or her own time.
Yeah. And communication is a two-way street.
Yeah.
And we forget that the person needs to be willing to receive the message in order for communication to work.
Yeah, sure. Ivan, have you ever felt prejudice for being a Latino in the US or anywhere else?
Definitely. And I almost challenge anyone that have not felt prejudice at some point. The bigger question is, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. How do you deal with it?
And how are you going to react?
Yeah.
So, in my personal journey, I used to be a lot more hot-headed than I am right now. And one of the things that you learn that nobody can insult you, nobody can harm you with words, nobody can make you feel bad unless you allow it. And there's limits to that, obviously. But a big part is how you take it. Where is this come from? Why is this happening? Can I do something to diffuse it or to make it better for the next time or to the next person? What can I change? And that has helped me a lot. But yeah, I have been passed in the past. I have been passed for opportunities where clearly I was the best candidate by a mile in my academic experience, in my professional experience, and still someone was selected that was different than me and that looked different than I do. To me, I usually in those cases, that motivates me even more. And I hope it motivates more people to say, you know what, next time I'm going to be better prepared. And you know what, I'm going to be better prepared for me, not for the other person or even for the company. And let my actions and my knowledge speak. And it is a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But it is also a blessing, because if anything that pushes you forward and that helps you understand another person, another situation, so that you cannot do it to another person. Because I have seen how something bitter happens to you, and suddenly you are exhibiting the same behavior
Yeah.
for someone else, towards someone else, to retaliate, or because that's what you know that you believe that is right and it's not right. So I try to turn those negatives into positives. But it has happened in business, it has happened socially, it has happened academically. Uh, I always use the examples that sometimes in some cultures, a certain where you're coming from are can be seen as an expert. But if you come from another country and you say the same, you're not seen as an expert.
Yeah.
And the only thing that changed was the accent. And it's sad, right?
It's sad. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
believe that if we create more understanding, things will change little by little, and we're going to be able to make change better for the people that are behind us and hopefully for our kids.
Yeah. That's my purpose. That's why I work so hard to leave a better world for my girls.
Yeah, definitely.
Eva, what was your biggest learning with this pandemic so far?
Patience.
Patience. Yeah, we need that.
Patience. And again, going back to the concept of what's important, and enjoying the little things. I said, for example, in my case, uh, and in many people, right? But I used to work, I'm used to work from anywhere, right? From airport lounges and hotels, my home office, like today, anywhere. And when people said, hey, you're going to have to work from home, I said, like, I've done that many times. The difference to me is that now I have to do it because that was the only way, and they told me.
Yeah.
Before was because I chose to do it. So being able to have the patience to work through that was a learning. Another learning was to be able to enjoy the time with the family. I had never, not never, but in the last 20, 30 years, probably had not spent as much time with my wife and kids in the first year of the pandemic, because we were all, like everyone, living in the same house all the time. And thank God that I was able to provide a house with some space so you could be alone. Uh, but then getting together for dinner and having to talk to each other about what has happened was a huge blessing, because usually that would happen every now and then, but not every day, because life was fast and someone was going someplace. So being able to dial back and say, you know what, it is great to be together. It is great to have a conversation. It is great to enjoy a night outside in the balcony,
Yeah.
just with a good glass of wine, if that's what you like, and enjoy the sundown. Uh, so there was a lot of learnings of going to the basics, and a lot of learnings of the things that you don't need. I don't need to be everywhere at the same time. I don't need necessarily to participate in every single activity. And you kind of appreciate more the ones that you really want to participate. And you become a lot more conscious of how valuable is your time. For us, having, I guess, been more experienced in life, you also realize the value of a year. So for your kids, 1 year may be a very small percentage of what we hope their life would be. But that same percentage for me, it's much bigger because I'm much older.
Yeah.
So enjoy what you have, enjoy every day, and make sure the activities are the ones that you really want to do. Because even if you have, hopefully, whatever amount of years, let's say 4 decades, it's still a lot less than what you had
Yeah,
before.
sure.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of lessons, and obviously very sad of all the people that have suffered. But hopefully we have learned a lot. Also kindness, be able to help others, be able to, like for example, I believe in one of the non-for-profits here is called Meals on Wheels. And basically what they do is to take food to senior citizens. And before the vaccines, obviously that was a very vulnerable population. And you suddenly learn, you know what? We should be part of that economically or taking food to them, because those are the people, those are your parents, and maybe they don't have people that take care of them. So those are the things, the learnings that I took, and I feel blessed to be able to have lived through this pandemic, uh, at least on the learnings, right? Not on
Yeah.
the bad part. I certainly hope that we are at the end of it too. But I feel blessed of God have gone through it.
Yeah. When you were talking, it reminded me of a sentence that also today at the class, Subby said, time is the currency of life.
Yes. Yeah.
And we should never forget it to
Or take
make
it for
better
granted.
choices.
Yeah, I firmly believe that.
Eva, do you talk to your kids in Spanish or in English?
So that really depends. What are we talking about? We at so they moved to the U.S. and they were very young. One was in fifth grade, the other one was, I think, in first grade or second grade, and fourth grade actually, and second grade or first grade. So we put them in international school because we wanted them to understand where they come from and to keep their language. So we try to speak a lot of Spanish in the house. But I will say that whenever we talk like business or their academic life, English comes out. When we are talking a lot more about family things, we talk mostly in Spanish. Uh, Certainly, where we are mad at each other, especially as parents, we go back to Spanish. That's easier. Uh, but uh, but it's kind of a mix, and it's sad. But both of them have been able to keep their language skills, which I'm very proud. I would say my oldest speaks more in Spanish than my youngest, but both of them speak both languages and certainly speak much better English than I do. Uh, Writing is another story. They still have somewhat of their struggles communicating in writing, but both of them can do it as well.
Okay, yeah. I was just curious because I have a brother who lives in the US, in Columbus, and he has been living there for more than 20 years, but he married an American woman.
Okay.
So he never taught my niece and my nephew to talk in Portuguese, and they speak English all the time. So it's a mess.
Yeah, we do speak Spanglish every now and then, which is kind of funny. When
Yeah.
we see it, interjecting some English word or Spanish words here and there. Uh, so we have to be better at it. But yeah, but language is super important. I
Yeah.
like to learn languages, although I'm not very good. I don't know if you heard of the Duolingo. but it's an app for
Yeah. My youngest daughter, she was studying French there at Duolingo.
Eu pratico every day Duolingo in Portuguese, hoping to learn. But like any language, you need to practice.
Yeah.
And the best thing is when you read and you watch TV on it, and you are forced to talk.
Yeah.
That's where you catch the language.
Yeah. And how do you take care of yourself, Ivan?
Well, I do the best I can, but not always successful. But I think that again, COVID was a great lesson. I love to exercise. I used to play basketball probably 3-4 days a week. As we get old, it's difficult.
Yeah.
So I changed to tennis. So I try to play tennis 3 times a week, do some weights and exercise. And then, with the help of my wife, try to eat better. Puerto Rican cuisine was a lot of fried food
Wow.
and a lot of things that are not very delicious, very good, costosos, but not necessarily the best for you.
Healthy.
Yeah. So we have been trying to change our diet at least 5 days a week to eat healthier, to have a lot more greens and more fresh produce, and mainly to stay also away from meat most of the time. Although we do enjoy it and do it every now and then, and then pick up some habits on meditation and some habits on trying to exercise in a way of yoga,
Okay.
which is not. I used to say that yoga was for not for real people, right? These are the people that transcend, and I was not real exercise. But when you try to do it, you realize
How
how hard it
difficult.
is, yeah,
Yeah.
and how much strength it takes, especially if you advance in the levels, and then the benefits that it can bring. But for me, it's still a journey because getting used to do it and getting in the groove of things, it takes time,
Yeah.
and I'm still working through
Yeah. You're gonna do it.
it.
Ivan, what are the main skills you think leaders should have from now on?
I think going back to, in order to be a good leader, I'm just amazed how many leaders love to listen to themselves.
Yeah.
And great leaders, and even the community, praise them for talking and praise them for writing things that come out 2 or 3 years after they're happening. And those are important. But having that ability to listen and taking the time and being part of their team is super important. If you're the type of leader that are in the top floor and never been to the lower floors, you're not a leader.
Yeah.
I remember one of the learnings from my parents is to be able to relate to everyone and try to understand how the other people see you and how the other people live. We started in our company, the company that I used to work, trying to be one of the top companies. And to me, the only reason to do it was to increase the engagement within everyone. And I always try to take the time to be with my coworkers at all levels. And if I had the chance to actually even do their job at some point, to see how we feel, to see what's done, to understand their pains, and to be able to then craft a better path for whatever we wanted to do. So I think that's super important. And then what we talked about, the vulnerability aspects.
Yeah.
Leaders don't want to be vulnerable. And true, you have to be careful, right? Because they're public figures. But I think you still gain a lot more by being vulnerable and being with the people that by not doing it.
For sure.
And that will bring engagement, performance, and if it's a for-profit organization, it will bring profits.
Yeah.
As an experience, many years ago, we run into a low point in one of the companies that I was leading. And I met with them and I said, listen, we report to we are a subsidiary, and we're falling short. So the only way to help here is to increase the revenues or lower the expenses. And right now, we were in a tough economic situation. So the revenues were not coming. So we're going to have to reduce the expenses and some hard decisions will be taken. And a guy that was called Rolando, I remember like today, stood up, a manager, and said, Mr. Lopez, we would much rather give away part of our bonuses and stay together, ride this wave, and find a new revenue than for anyone to have to leave the organization.
Wow.
That was incredible. And that's an example of what people do when they're together.
Yeah.
And yes, you cannot do that in every organization, but it was very telling of what that group meant to each other.
Yeah.
And the things that we could do. And we didn't do any cuts. We found a way to work through it and to find the revenue and to do other things. But it was incredible.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
And,
I can imagine.
Experience.
Yeah, I can
Very
imagine.
moving.
Yeah. So we're almost 1 hour talking here. As I always say, good conversations just fly. I have 4 more questions for you. The first one is, what makes you awake at night?
What makes me awake at night, keeps me awake? I will say that it's more about, did I actually live my purpose today? Or did I waste the time? I hate to waste time.
Yeah, time is life's currency. We have to remember that. Yeah.
So recognizing that keeps me awake sometimes.
Yeah, fair enough. What is your biggest dream, Ivan?
My biggest dream is, I think it goes back to be able to live a full life where I have made a difference in my family and in my community. I want to leave them in a better place, and I want them to know how much I love them.
Wow, so nice. And if you didn't fear anything at all, what would you do that you haven't done yet?
Wow. So at the personal funny things, I'll go bungee jumping. And I think that in a professional way, I would dedicate every single minute to causes that I believe in the hope that it really makes a difference.
Yeah. I love the way you frame it, because at a personal level, it always goes, this answer always goes to highs or something deep or something you lose control. It's always about this. Our biggest fears, it's when we lose control of something.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but this second part is deep. Yeah. we wish we had more time to do everything we want to do. Yeah.
Definitely.
Before I ask you the last question, I just want to thank everyone that was here with us, and I want to invite you to be here with me next week, Tuesday and Friday at 6 p.m. Brazil time. 2 more guests, 1 man and 1 woman, as we always have here every week. Gender equality. This is key for this program. So, Ivan, it was such a pleasure. Thank you for all the learnings, for opening your heart, and for speaking. Because, as you said, you are more a listener than a speaker. So you were very generous speaking to me and to us. My last question is always the same. What is the legacy that you want to leave? How do you want to be remembered?
So first, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. And you're right, time goes by very fast. The legacy is a legacy of love. It's a legacy of love to people, love what I do, love to my family. And hopefully that influence other people to do the same.
Great. So thank you, Ivan. Do you want to leave any final message for the audience?
Yeah, I always finish with something that I feel, no matter what you do, make sure you're having fun.
Yeah, I love it. just as we did here today, right now.
That is right. Just remember to have fun.
Yeah, that's key. So thank you for your time, and hopefully when this pandemic is over, we're gonna meet in person
I would
somehow.
love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Have a great afternoon. Obrigado.
Then you have a great weekend with your family.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Take care.